I'm Cass. Welcome back to my channel. Today I'm bringing you a massive book haul, but massive being 20. I feel like 20 is definitely a substantial amount of books. However, caveat, these are the books that I've bought throughout 2024, so I am on a little bit of a book buying budget moment, so I've been really spacing out my purchases, being super picky about which books that I purchase, and I was doing so good January to March, okay? And I'm not saying that my trip visiting Jan correlated to a substantial increase in my book buying, but that is what the statistics are saying. So April and May especially, I kind of went off the rails. I buy a lot of my books secondhand or from indie bookshops, but I do try to buy a lot of my books secondhand, and the ones that I do buy like brand new, I like to make like an event out of it. So I like taking myself on a little date to Barnes & Noble to pick up a couple books, and that's always really lovely, so I make it like a little event for myself. But that is besides the point. The point is we've got 20 books to get through. I have them all sorted by genre, so I'm going to just go through each pile, talk about them. We've got some fantasy romance, some high fantasy, some regular romance, some sci-fi, some autobiographies, some manga. We've got a little bit of everything. But since these are books that I've bought throughout the year, some of these I've actually read. So if I have read them, I'll talk about if I liked them, what I rated them, that sort of thing, if I remember what I rated them, and then maybe if there's books that I haven't read, maybe I'll tell you if they're on my upcoming TBR or not. So let's go ahead and just get started. Starting with The Traitor Queen by Danielle L. Jensen. Now this is on my May TBR. This is the second book in the Bridge Kingdom duology, and I had to snag this up because the Bridge Kingdom and The Traitor Queen, and I think just the entire Bridge Kingdom series, I think there's 4 or 5 books out. They're getting traditionally published, which go Danielle L. Jensen, but Jody recently sent me the Bridge Kingdom, so I wanted them to actually have matching covers, and I knew that I would pick this up very shortly, so I thought it was worth the investment to snag it up while it was cheap before people started reselling them for higher prices since they're now out of print. These covers have grown on me because originally I wasn't a big fan of the style, but they're fun. We are following Laura and Aren, and Laura was sent to the Bridge Kingdom to marry King Aren. However, there is plot afoot because Laura's actual objective was not necessarily to forge an alliance, but instead figure out how to infiltrate the Bridge Kingdom for her kingdom. So she was raised as an assassin, but of course, got romance. This is a fantasy romance, so romance ensues. The ending of the first book left on quite a bit of a plot twist, plot reveal, oh my gosh, what are we doing to the reader type of moment. So I am really eager to pick up The Traitor Queen. I love a good duology, and these books aren't too long. They're just over 300 pages, and the first book absolutely blew me out of the water, so I'm really hoping that The Traitor Queen matches that same energy. Next on the docket is actually another Danielle L. Jensen book, which is A Fate, Inks, and Blood. Now this is the Fairy Loot edition. I never typically ever buy special editions of books that I haven't read. However, the amount of ogling I did over this book, I like hemmed and hawed over buying this for over a month, checking the listings like every day to see if I could snag one at an affordable price. You can ask Katie, I was obnoxious about wanting to buy this book, and I finally caved after I read The Bridge Kingdom because I really enjoyed it, so I had high hopes for Danielle L. Jensen's other series. This is a Norse-inspired fantasy romance. From what I understand, she is married for a political reason but hates her husband, but then love ensues. There's like magical elements in this book. It just seems like a delightful time. And let me just show off real quick the beautiful cover here, and the back, and the spine, and the sprayed edges. I love to see them. They're so pretty. And then under the dust jacket is equally stunning as well. It's really giving How to Train Your Dragon, is it not? You cannot tell me that's not Astrid and Hiccup. I state my piece. I am hoping to get to this very soon, either in May or June. I've heard some really mixed reviews about this. However, I have my expectations lowered because I've heard it's insta-lovey, and well, I'm not necessarily against insta-love. As long as it's executed well, I can't really complain. I recently just watched Katie's vlog, and she said it was a silly, goofy time when she wasn't sure if it was supposed to be a silly, goofy time. So that's the energy we're going into this book with. And then the last fantasy romance that I have here is Crescent City, House of Earth and Blood. House of Flame and Shadow. Earth and Blood's the first one. House of Flame and Shadow. I went to the Barnes & Noble midnight release for this book. I was actually in flight attendant training at the time, and midnight was so late for me because our report times were like 4 in the morning, 5 in the morning. So staying up till midnight was kind of a lot. This was the only book I bought in January. Please be proud of me. This easily is my least favorite Sarah J Maas book. It was unnecessarily long, and it was so boring to get through. I literally was so excited for this book. I have been anticipating this book since House of Sky and Breath, and to be this disappointed was absolutely crushing. I gave it like a 2.5 stars, I'm pretty sure. However, we'll keep it. This is one of my favorite covers. However, the spine irks me because it doesn't match the others. But I actually love the spine on this one. This is one of my favorite spines, but my least favorite book, and my least favorite because it doesn't match anything else. Why does Sarah J Maas do that? Because they did that with Kingdom of Ash too, where all the books were dark colored and then Kingdom of Ash is this obnoxiously bright yellow. So maybe they were trying to not fall into that, but it would have looked good because the other ones are red and blue. What's up with that? This is the Barnes & Noble like exclusive edition, and the bonus scenes or whatever. I just am over the cash grab of a bunch of retailers adding bonus scenes into the end just for people want to buy multiple editions, even though the only thing that's different is like 20 pages at the end. It irks me so much. Why are we doing this? You can probably find them online to read for free anyways. You don't need to buy 7 copies of the exact same book. Tangent aside, Carson City. Now moving on to high fantasy. I have been in such a high fantasy kick ever since I started the Stormlight series. I adore high fantasy and I've always known this about myself. However, they're just harder to get into, and typically I know they're gonna take a lot of energy out of me to read, or I'm just gonna be a little confused for a while and I have to push myself through. Basically, they're really good reads, but they're not necessarily the easiest of reads because you have to really envelop yourself into this world. Some authors are better about developing their worlds and explaining their magic systems, and other authors aren't as good, so it can be really confusing. However, it has not stopped me. I have just been picking up so many high fantasies. One of the ones that I was actually the most excited about was Malice by John Gwynne. This has been kind of everywhere as of late. I had a couple of my Patreons recommend this book to me, as well as Sid over at Sydney Bookworm, and honestly, I'm living for it so much. I did give this book a solid 4 stars. From what I've heard, the series gradually gets better and better. However, I took way too long to read this book. It took me like a month to finish. I kind of waited too long between starting this book and finishing this book, so there was a lot of characters that kind of slipped my mind where I forgot who they were. And there's a lot of characters in this book. I think this has a decent introduction. It feels very like set up. We're following a bunch of different characters. Like I said, we have multiple POVs. Corbin is my favorite. He's like this little boy you get to see grow up and become a warrior. He's got a little wolfhound companion. I love a good animal companion, so that has been spectacular. Good setup, but nothing extraordinary. However, it does have me hooked to continue on the series, so that is super exciting. So I also ended up buying recently Valor by John Gwynne, which is the second book. Now, I was going to just buy the series in one fell swoop, but I decided to buy it as I read them. That way I can decide whether I want to order them online or actually like take myself to Barnes & Noble and pick them up. Because when I originally bought Malice, I actually took myself on a little date to Barnes & Noble and picked it up, and it was delightful. I love book shopping so much, and I rarely do. Because there's no half prices near me, I have to go to Barnes & Noble, which is substantially more expensive. Therefore, I treat book shopping as like a little treat. You know, 1 or 2 books occasionally at Barnes & Noble, but we can't be paying full price all the time for them. But these covers, honestly, I'm obsessed with. I love the Middle Ages, which is when this book is set in. I love the fantasy world that it's set in. I think the magic is very interesting because it's very background. It hasn't really been developed too much. So yes, it's fantasy, but I feel like we're really sticking in the Middle Ages battle, you know, hand-to-hand combat, swords. It's giants versus man. I'm digging it a lot. I'll actually read you the back in case you don't know what Malice is about. I feel like this is one of those books that are difficult to explain, especially since the first book is so set up. Kind of have to just experience it to see what direction the story is going. It says, the world is broken. Corbin wants nothing more than to be a warrior under King Brennan's rule to protect and serve, but that day will come all too soon, and the price he pays will be in blood. Evnus has sacrificed too much, it seems, but what he wants, the power to rule, will soon be in his grasp, and nothing will stop him once he has started on his path. Veritas is the newest member of the warband for the High Prince Nithar. He is one of the most skilled swordsmen to come out of his homeland, yet he is always under the shadow of his older brother. Nithar has ideas and a lot of plans. Many of them don't involve his father, the High King Achilles, nor does he agree with his father's idea to summon his fellow kings to council. The Banished Lands has a violent past where armies of men and giants clashed in battle, but now giants stir anew, stones weep blood, and there are sightings of giant worms. Those who can still read the signs see a threat far greater than the ancient wars. For if the Black Sun gains ascendancy, mankind's hopes and dreams will fall to dust, and it can never be made whole again. Delightful. We've got prophecy, we've got giants, we've got war, everything that I typically enjoy in a book, and I cannot wait to continue on the series. So these are the next 2 books that I have hauled. And honestly, all 4 of them are gonna look spectacular. I can't wait until I collect all of the Faithful and the Fallen series. They've got weapons on the covers and I love them. I do have another John Gwynne book that I picked up, and that is The Shadow of the Gods. Now, this is an incomplete series. The 3rd book is coming out later this year, and this is actually my May Patreon buddy read. So if you want to check out my Patreon and join us for May, feel free. I know this is coming out like end of May, but like, it's never too late. Obviously, this feels very similar in terms of, you know, it's a high fantasy, so let me just read you the back for you know what's up. Legends tell of the great long ago battle of the gods. When the gods fought, it was a battle so savage they destroyed themselves, leaving nothing but their bones and the broken lands of Vigrid in their wake. Now, as whispers of war echo over the shores across the plains, fate follows in the footsteps of 3 warriors, a huntress on a perilous quest, a nobleman pursuing battle fame, and a thrall seeking retribution among the mercenaries known as the Bloodsworn. All 3 will change the course of the world as it once more falls under the shadow of the gods. I'm gonna eat this up. I'm so incredibly excited about this book. Once again, the covers are absolutely phenomenal. I love it. The entire series, stunning. This is another one of those series that I will buy as I read them. So obviously I'll be reading this one very, very soon for my Patreon. And then I'm hoping to read the 2nd book sometime between when the 3rd book comes out and when I read this one. So a nice like middle marker. I'll have to figure out when that is because I can't remember exactly when the 3rd book comes out. I know it's at the end of the year. I'm just not sure which month, but I'm very excited about this. Like I said, the edition is stunning. I'm honestly getting a little bit more respect for the floppy paperbacks. I mean, this isn't like too floppy, but it's got a nice bit of flop. And I've realized that paperback high fantasies are so much easier to read than hardcovers because they're a little bit more transportable. Then we have The Shadow of What Was Lost. Lots of shadows going on here. Now this is by James Isington, who is the author of The Will of the Many. I also did order The Will of the Many. I am filming this pretty early in May, but I'm hoping that it wins my June Patreon vote. So it might be my June Patreon buddy read. I recently watched Peru's Project. I believe her name is Reagan. She did a reading vlog where she read this and she thought it was quite good, and I'm on my high fantasy kick and I saw this at half price recently, decided to nab it up. I've heard it's a little bit more clunky, but it's also very comparable to John Gwynne. So here we are. Let's go ahead and read the back of this. A destiny calls, a journey begins. It has been 20 years since the godlike augurs were overthrown and killed. Those who once served them, the gifted, were spared only after accepting the rebellion's 4 tenets, which vastly limit their powers. Davian suffers the consequences of a war lost before he was even born. When he discovers that he wields the forbidden power of the augurs, he sets into motion a chain of events that will change everything. To the west, a young man whose fate is intertwined with Davian's wakes up in a forest, covered in blood, and with no memory of who he is. And in the far north, an ancient enemy begins to stir. I know this is a trilogy. I'm just really excited about it. Also, it's got a nice texture, which is a weird thing to comment on, but I kind of love it. Again, decent flop. Love to see it. I have also substantially grown my collection of high fantasy books, paperback with white spines. Don't know what that is about, but I'm kind of digging it. Next, we have a book that I've heard nothing about anywhere, and that is The First Binding by R.R. Verdi. Now, I picked this up at half price, I believe back in February when I visited Katie, and it says the first novel of a new epic fantasy series. And I think this is a recent release as well. Let me see, 2022, so recent-ish. Anyways, all legend are born of truths, and just as much lies. These are mine. Judge me for what you will, but you will hear my story first. I buried the village of Amper under a mountainous ice and snow. Then I killed their gods. I've stolen old magics and been cursed for it. I started a war with those who walked before mankind, and lost the princess I loved and wanted to save. I've called lightning and bound fire. I am legend, I am monster. My name is Ari. And this is the story of how I let loose the first evil. It seems delightful, honestly. Epic high fantasy, some really questionable decisions made by our main character Ari, but I'm hoping that it'll be good. I would love to pick this up pretty soon. I don't know if there's a second book released yet. Like I said, this was released back in 2022, so hopefully there's a second book out for I can continue. I don't know how long this series is going to be, but Jim Butcher says, crafted with patience, passion, and the most important, tremendous love. I've heard nothing about this author nor nothing about this book, so I'm hoping that I can pick it up soon, figure out what it's all about. It is fairly long, it's like 800 pages, but hopefully I can find time to invest into reading this. It is a hardcover, so it's not as transportable, but I do really love the cover and the spine, especially just like the color of the sky and like the little bit of the castle here as well. It's just really pretty. I do still have 4 more fantasy books to talk about, but I'm gonna take a little intermission before returning to talking about them because all this video has been so far has been fantasy. So let's talk about the one sci-fi book that I picked up, which is Shadow of Hedgeman by Orson Scott Card. This is the second book to Ender's Shadow, which is a book that follows Bean, which if you've read Ender's Game, Bean is one of the people on Ender's crew. Now, the first book takes place in space and there has been this long war between humans and these aliens, and essentially in the first book they have defeated the aliens. So now this battle school that they've been sending children to for ages to try to defeat these aliens no longer is needed. And so they are sent back to Earth, and now there's politics at play. These children that grew up knowing nothing but war and how to defeat these aliens, and they're not necessarily even heroes. They're like potential weapons for different countries to use. So we get to see more of Bean, we get to see Ender's brother and sister as well. And I think it's going to be so fascinating. I am so freaking excited. Now, I did read the first 2 books of the Ender's Game quartet, and it wasn't my favorite because it took a completely different direction than I was anticipating. However, I feel like Bean's quartet is going to be so much more well done and more in the alley of what I enjoy with sci-fi. I'm so excited to see the politics. These are some crazy smart kids, and just seeing how they manipulate the system I know is going to be fascinating. I do for some reason really like the mass market paperback. I have the mass market of Ender's Shadow, and that was really fun to read out of. So I like older sci-fi books to be read in mass market. I don't know what it is about it, but also it's like $3. Okay, such a good investment. And it's cute. I like them. They're so tiny, so transportable. I know I keep talking about the transportability of books, but I'm a flight attendant, so these things now come into play because I can only fit so many books in my luggage when I travel. Then we have a autobiography, which is The Mechanic, The Secret World of the F1 Pit Lane by Mark Elvis Priestley. Now, I am into Formula One. I've been keeping up with this season. My dad got me into it, and it's just been delightful to watch the races, and I thought it'd be fun to read some Formula One related books. Now, I did debate picking up like those like cheesy Formula One romances, but upon further reflection, we're not doing that. So instead we'll settle for some autobiographies. I did read this. I think I gave it like 4 stars, low 3, high 3, I don't remember. Anyways, I did really enjoy it though. It's been a while since I've read an autobiography, I feel like, but it was just delightful. I mean, there was a lot more like juicy gossip and tea and behind the scenes with different drivers, and they're very luxurious and like not playboy necessarily, but just rich people world, basically. They're in a rich people world, and how they acted definitely reflected that. I think that Mark went way deeper into revealing some things about his past that I'm like, whoa, okay. Little to no respect for that particular action, but if you're a fan of Formula One, honestly, it's not a bad read. They've got some pictures in the center too. Now, Mark was a mechanic at McLaren. This was interesting as well because we got to follow the peak of some drivers' careers, like when Sebastian Vettel won. We also got to see a massive rivalry between Lewis Hamilton and Fernando Alonso, and how that actually divided the pit crew was fascinating and something that I never really thought about when it came to teammates being rivals. So good. Really enjoyed it. It was an easy read. I think the writing style was very basic and simple, which is to be expected. It was short, it was fun, I enjoyed it, and I'll probably pick up more F1 autobiographies if I can find some good ones. Returning back to my fantasy stack, we've got 4 more like I said. First we have Song of the Huntress by Lucy Holland. This has got a really cute map. She's a cutie. Anyways, Britain, 16 CE. Hoping to save her lover and her land from the Romans, Herla makes a desperate pact with the Otherworld King. She becomes Lord of the Hunt, and for centuries she rides, reaping wandering souls, until the night she meets a woman on a bloody battlefield, a Saxon queen with ice blue eyes. Queen Ethelberg of Wessex is a proven fighter, but after a battlefield defeat, she finds her husband Court turning against her. But now the dead kings of Wessex are waking, and King E needs Ethel more than ever if he is to master his bloodline's ancient magic in order to survive. When the women's paths cross, Herla knows it's no coincidence. Something dark and dangerous is at work in the Wessex court. She and Ethel grow closer, and Herla must find her humanity in a way to break the Otherworld King's curse before it's too late. It says one of the most powerful new voices in myth retelling transforms the story of Herla and the Wild Hunt into a rich feminist fantasy. It's a stunning tale of 2 great warriors, a war-torn land, and an ancient magic that is slowly awakening. It just seemed really fun. I think, and I freaking hope, that this is a standalone novel. It's just over 400 pages, and it's got a stunning cover. Honestly, it's the cover that really drew me in, but then obviously the plot itself sounds so fascinating. This next book might make absolutely no sense considering that I wasn't a big fan of it, and that's Assassin's Apprentice by Robin Hobb. However, I originally bought this with the illustrated edition, and I've decided that I don't love Robin Hobb's writing enough to elicit spending that money on the illustrated editions, but I can do a cheap paperback and give it another shot. Now, I don't plan on necessarily rereading this, but I will probably try to collect the series in this cover and hopefully return to the series someday. I don't know if I want to push through this series before getting to the live tradership series, but I feel like those I'll enjoy a lot more. However, so many people have said that you do need to read this series first, so we'll see if I ever do push myself to continue this series. I don't know, but I saw it at half price for like 10 bucks and I couldn't pass it up because it's in really, really pristine condition, and honestly, this is one of my favorite covers. I'm a big fan of the Middle Ages and medieval time, and that is clearly what the inspiration of this cover has been drawn from, and I'd be silly to not have it, you know? And it was right there in such good condition. In case you don't know what Assassin's Apprentice is, I will do you the service of reading the back. The kingdoms of the 6 duchies is on the brink of civil war when news breaks that the crown prince has fathered a bastard son and is shamed into abdication. The child's name is Fitz and he is despised. Raised in the castle stables, only in the company of the king's fool, the ragged children of the lower city, and his unusual affinity with animals provides Fitz with any comfort. To be useful to the crown, Fitz is trained as an assassin and to use the traditional magic of the Farseer family, but his tutor, allied to another political faction, is determined to discredit, even kill him. Fitz must survive, for he may be destined to save the kingdom. I don't know why I didn't like this book. Part of it was a Wyverns and Words book club book, and I think I waited to the last minute to read it, so then I had to force myself to read it when I wasn't in the mood. So who knows? I'm not gonna ever say that I'm never gonna finish this series, but we might have to give this another chance. The next book we have is A Dance of Cloaks by David Dalglish. This is a book about an assassin. And it says, the underworld rules the city of Eldarin. Thieves, smugglers, assassins, they fear only one man. Thren Fellhorn is the greatest assassin of his time. All the thieves' guilds of the cities are under his unflinching control. If he has his way, death will soon spill out from the shadows and into the streets. Aaron is Thren's son, trained to be his heir to his father's criminal empire. He's cold, ruthless, everything an assassin should be. But when Aaron risks his life to protect a priest's daughter from his own guild, he glimpses a world beyond poison daggers and the iron rule of his father. My brother actually recommended me this book. He said he read it back in high school and really liked it. We're at half price. It was like $7 or $8. I thought I'd give it a go. It seems like an easy read and the cover is really dope, I'm not gonna lie. So assassiny. I don't think I've read a book with a male assassin. I feel like most of the books that I tend to read that have assassins are female assassins, other than I know I just talked about Assassin Apprentice, where the main character is Fitz, which is a guy, but we're gonna pretend that I didn't forget about that until this very moment, even though I just talked about it. However, like I said, I'm not expecting anything phenomenal going into this book, but it just seems like a fun read. And my brother recommended it to me, and I've yet to find a book he's recommended that I like, so hopefully this will be one and we can talk about it. And then the last fantasy book, we still have 6 more books to get through, but the last fantasy book is Masterpieces of Fantasy and Enchantment, compiled by David G. Hartwell. I mostly bought this book because it was $4 and the cover is phenomenal. The cover is really cute, but then you're not even ready. Look at the back. Look at that. I love it so much. It's so cute. This is a collection, I believe, of like classic, oh look, my receipt. Yeah, look at that. $4. This is a collection of, I feel like, fantasy classics. So writing from Charles Dickens, Nathaniel Hawthorne, William Morris, Mark Twain. We've got American fairy tales in here as well. It's one of those books that I eventually want to just like slowly pick my way through. Classic fantasy seems very daunting, but maybe it'll be a fun time. And like I said, it was $4. It's also really heavy for how small it is. So that's another bit of trivia, I suppose. Moving swiftly along into my romance. Now I have 3 romance books. One of them I have actually read, and that is Dungeons and Drama by Christy Boyce. I gave this 4 stars. This is just a wholesome little YA romance that follows Riley, who is a musical theater kid, and Nathan. They end up having to fake date to make exes jealous, and it's a whole thing. He plays D&D, she ends up joining D&D. They're like trying to save the school's musical theater program. It's just very high school, but it doesn't take itself too seriously, but it also is not too cheesy, and it's just a delightful balance. I really, really love this book. I think it's under 300 pages. Yep, under 300 pages. A very quick read, and one that I would absolutely revisit into the future. And I am so bloody obsessed with this cover as well. Like, pink is my favorite color, and just how fun is this color palette? And then the back has some dice, and it's got some like cute swords, and the spine is yellow, and it just looks so spectacular on my romance shelf. And I love it so much. It's got a nice flop. If you care about the flop, it was really fun. Like I said, I would totally revisit this book in the future. And I'm just so obsessed with this cover. Next we have an Abby Jimenez book, which is just for the summer. Now, Katie recently bought this. I thought it'd be fun to read a romance book that Katie also plans on reading, because I feel like we have very different tastes in romance, but I'm determined to find one that we both align with. And it sounds so fun. When it comes to love, Emma is cursed. Every guy she dates finds his true love after they break up, but it turns out she's not the only one afflicted with this condition. His name is Justin, and his Reddit thread about being love's good luck charm has gone viral. Now the 2 of them have come up with an ingenious plan. If they date each other, their curses will cancel out, and they'll go on to find their soulmate. Only Justin wasn't supposed to be unbelievably cute and hilarious. But when Emma's toxic mother shows up and Justin has to assume guardianship of 3 siblings, they're suddenly navigating a lot more than they expected, including catching real feelings. Has fate finally brought together the perfect pair, or will their cure be way more hazardous than the curse itself? Now, I didn't realize until after that this is part of like a series, but each one I'm assuming is separate. I almost picked up Part of Your World by Abby Jimenez a couple years back because Allison Pages had read it and really, really loved it. So if I love this one, I will probably go back and purchase Part of Your World and give that one a read as well. But summer is coming up, and I am just in the mood to space out my high fantasy in between some fun, cute romance books. So that's exactly what we're going for here. I also have a book that I've been eyeing literally forever, The Bodyguard by Catherine Senner. We've got fake dating in this book, which is my absolute favorite trope. Oh, this is like a long little blip. Please be patient. She's got his back. Hannah Brooks looks more like a kindergarten teacher than somebody who could kill you with a wine bottle opener. I'm sold. Or a ballpoint pen. Or a dinner napkin. But the truth is, she's an executive protection agent, aka bodyguard, and she just got hired to protect superstar actor Jack Stapleton from his middle-aged corgi breeding stalker. He's got her heart. Jack Stapleton's a household name. He is captured by paparazzi on beaches the world over and famous for, among other things, rising out of the waves in all manner of clingy board shorts and glistening like a Roman deity. But a few years back, in the wake of a family tragedy, he drops from the public eye and went off the grid. They've got a secret. When Jack's mom gets sick, he goes to the family's Texas ranch to help out. Only one catch. He doesn't want his family to know about his stalker, or the bodyguard thing. And so Hannah, against her will and her better judgment, finds herself pretending to be Jack's girlfriend as a cover, even though her ex says no one will believe it. What could possibly go wrong? Hannah hardly believes it herself, but the more time she spends with Jack, the more real it all starts to seem. And there lies the heartbreak, because it's easy for Hannah to protect Jack, but protecting her own long-neglected heart, that's the hardest thing she's ever done. I love the fact that his bodyguard is a girl, and the whole fake dating thing. I think it'll just be so delightful, and it just seems so fun. And they're on a ranch in Texas. I'm from Texas. I don't typically claim Texas identities, but here we are. The cover is adorable. I've been eyeing this book for ages. I know a couple people really did enjoy this, so I'm hoping that I also do. Then we have a couple of manga. Now, I'm not typically one who collects manga, but I read and loved Frieren. So we have Frieren Volume 10. It's the last translated edition released thus far. Book 11 comes out in September. And then we have Frieren Volume 1. I went to Kinokuniya bookstore with my brother. I also went to Half Price with my brother, so a lot of these were bought with my brother. And I decided to go ahead and pick up the first volume, so I have Volume 1 and Volume 10. I'm going to slowly collect the rest of the series. I love Frieren so much. All of these have gotten 5 stars for me. The series has consistently put out amazing volumes. There has not been a single volume where I'm like, that wasn't as good as the other ones. No. They're all fabulous. We follow Frieren. She is a elven mage. Now, she went on an adventure with these 4 heroes here, and they saved the world from the Demon King. However, now the current storyline that we're following takes place 80 years in the future. Her companions have slowly died out because they're mortal, and that kind of makes her want to learn more about humans. And she set out on another adventure with her companions Fern and Stark, neither in which are on the covers of either of these books, but it is a delightful read. I'm watching the anime. I love it that much. I'm not usually one who watches anime, but here we are, and I can't wait to collect more of these. I love the art style, I love the setting, I love the story, I love the characters, the humor. My favorite manga ever now, okay? It's beautiful. And the last book was actually a recommendation from my brother, which is Snow White with the red hair. I thought this cover was so cute, and the art style is just so quaint, and it just seemed like a delightful time. Shirayuki is famous for her naturally bright red hair, and the Prince of Taraban wants her all for himself. But when she escapes into the woods of the neighboring kingdom, a young man named Zen and his 2 friends come to her aid. But who is Zen really? The protagonist has red hair, the art style seems really cute, and I love the fall type vibes on this book. I know it's not fall, but it just seemed fun. There's a lot of volumes as well. I don't think I'll collect this manga, okay? I don't think I'm gonna collect it, but I thought it'd be fun to at least pick up the first volume. I thought the cover was really cute, and my brother recommended it, so I'm really hoping that I enjoy it. Those are the 20 books that I have bought so far this year. Honestly, it seems kind of weird to say this, but I've enjoyed slowing down on my book buying. Yes, it's so freaking difficult because there's so many books that I still want to buy, but being able to, you know, read the first book of the series and then buy the next one after I read the first book, it's such a fun experience. I feel like in the past, I bought so many books at one time, I was less likely to read all of them. And now, since I have a smaller quantity of books, I feel like I'm more inclined to read the books that I actually have bought recently. It's just been so delightful because I love the feeling of buying a book and then almost immediately reading it. It's just been really fun. I hope that some of these have piqued your interest. I hope that I enjoy some of them that I have not read. Let me know if there were some books that I haven't read, what your thoughts about them are if you have read them. If you have not heard of these or have not read any of these, maybe just let me know a couple of books that you've bought recently. I always love seeing what people are buying, see what people are talking about. I just really love books. Thank you so much to my lovely Patreons. If you ever want some exclusive content from me, we have monthly buddy reads. Like I said, for May it's the Shadow of the Gods, for June it's hopefully the Will of the Many. Manifesting. Come on, patrons, don't let me down. We also have exclusive videos. We also do quarterly read-a-thons, and there's a bunch of other perks, so if you want to check it out, it is always linked below. Thank you all so much for watching, and I really hope to see you in the next one. Toodles!